Hello YouTube, Pilot-Wannabe here, and today's flight will be a video about radio navigation. I have a request from a viewer, my first one, Turbo Power, and he wanted to know how to do radio navigation in the Commanche because it's the only pay-wear aircraft he has, I imagine, and he likes it probably as much as I do and wants to master it. So this is a recreation of a flight I did on FS Economy from a little town in southern Ontario called Smith Falls into cottage country in Muskoka. Now the thing about this flight is we're going to be intercepting, well, there's three major areas that we're going to cover. Intercepting a VOR radial from a far distance, intercepting a VOR radial up close because it's different, and then we're going to conduct an NDB approach into Muskoka. So that should be a pretty good demonstration of the on how to navigate old school / slant alpha in the Commanche, the PA-24. All right, so let's show you the plan. I have it here on SkyVector, and this is Smith Falls. It's a little untowered airport, and it has its own NDB, but we won't be using that today. And we're close to the nation's capital of Ottawa, located here, but we're going to be using the Ottawa VOR. Now it's a little busy here, so I'm going to clean it up and we're going to go the IFR. So this is the Ottawa VOR, and we are going to be eventually on the Victor 300, which is the 256 radial. And we're going to pick it up. Nope, not there. We're going to pick it up here at Masna. And then we're going to fly on to the Coal Hill VOR. And it's inbound at 072. Now 072 and 256 are reciprocals of each other, so it shouldn't change, but there will be a difference that we will see when we get in the air. And then this will be where we intercept a VOR up close and experience the difference. And it doesn't quite show here, but when we get to the Muskoka Airport, we're going to overfly the Muskoka Airport direct to the Muskoka NDB. We're going to do a procedure turn, come around, come back, and it should line us up for 1-8. And as we check here, the winds are 280 at 3 knots. So the winds are not favoring us, but they're light, and by the time we get there, it's estimated to be about an hour and 15-minute flight. Should be okay, but even if we just go do a low approach, it should demonstrate the radio navigation. Okay, so with that being said, let's jump in the aircraft and do our final checks. Okay, so our trim is set where I want it, and I'm flying heavy today. I got 4 people to simulate FX Economy. I like flying aircrafts almost to their max gross weight. You pick up new skills in respect for how the aircraft behaves, because when it's empty, it's just going to perform better. Okay, so trim is set. We got flaps at 1. And to check it, look out the window and you can see flaps. So while we're here, flight controls. And flight controls. Aileron and elevator and rudder. Well, we can't see it in this aircraft. Alright. So let's go fuel pumps, landing lights on, strobe lights on, beacon and pitot heat on, all the lights on. And we're going to go VFR, so we should be altitude reporting, although it's automatic with the GTN 750. This will be to give us guidance while visually we're going to be doing it the old-fashioned way. I've already set up the 256 radial and the Ottawa VOR, and in standby I have the Coal Hill VOR. And another little trick you can do, I have the Ottawa VOR tuned up in nav 2. When you do that, if you go, let's go really close here. If you go DST, distance, you'll get nautical miles. It'll tell you how far you are. But we can't pick that up because we're not in the air right now and it's far away. One click, ground speed. And you can recognize that because it says it's in knots. This is the time to station or time to the waypoint, and it will be in minutes. And these last two are to hold the function of whatever you're on while you swap to a different frequency. I'm not quite sure how that works, but it's not a function I use or need. So we're going to leave it on distance. Mostly because if we go to Mazin here, Mazna, we can see here that this is the halfway point between the two VORs, and you should flip from one to the other when you get to 54 miles away. Where we're going to be intercepting it is past it, but we're still going to use this VOR to show when you're 60 miles from a VOR, it is different, really different than when you're up close. And so we can keep track of that with this, and it lets you know how close you are to your waypoint. Okay, so we've got lights, we've got camera, and the action is to make the call, but it's an untowered airport. So I don't know what the frequency is offhand, but we will just kind of fake it. Alright, so this airport's called Montague. So Montague traffic, Commanche 316 Papa Whiskey, departing, ready for takeoff. Taking off runway 08 for departure to the west, Montague traffic. And with that, parking brake off, feed in a little power. Can't really see, but there is no AI aircraft, so we don't have to worry about getting hit. Look at that, it says runway 06. I've been mistaken. Okay, it's not 8, it's 6. Alright, let's line the sucker up without chewing up too much runway. Okay, let us go. Holding in some right rudder to keep runway alignment. There's 60 knots, 70 knots, 80 knots. Should rotate 85, 90. Alright, and we're heavy. So she's going to struggle a little bit. Not really. And that trim, I'm almost hands-free on the aircraft right now. So, gear up. And we're going to keep the nose low so we can speed up. Okay, now we're approaching 400 feet above airport elevation. Flaps up. And let's commence our turn. And we're going to pull back the props a little bit to 2400. And we're going to leave the manifold pressure at 25. Alright, I think we have the Ottawa VOR tuned in now. So we're going to follow our GPS track. And even if we didn't have it, we could just take an initial heading in this general direction. Let's set up the heading bug. Alright, now that we're not turning, we're climbing like crazy again. Look at this sucker climb. Gotta love this thing. Even if it's for a brief moment. Yes, chewed up all our airspeed just there. So now we're at 100 knots. Best climb is 105. So it's best to let the nose lower, build up the speed again. Okay, so we're going to turn the GPS off here, and we have our radial dialed in, and I'll get back to you when we are close to the intercepting that radio. Alright, shall see you on the other side. Alright, and we're back on our navigational instructional video with the Commanche, the Piper Commanche, and we are close to intercepting our VOR from the Ottawa VOR. Okay, so let's jump in the flight deck and have a look at what's going on. Alright, according to the GPS, we are 9.7 nautical miles from Masna. Okay, and we see here we have a shallow intercept angle. It's already come in halfway and we're still 10 miles out. So we're about 55-60 miles from the Ottawa VOR, and actually we're 53.5 direct from the Ottawa VOR, but we're not flying directly to it or away from it, so we're off to an angle. But anyway, at this present moment we're 54 miles away. When you're this distance from a VOR, or a lesser distance and at a much higher altitude, the VOR comes in slow. You just have to be patient and wait. Now this is what I like to do. We're at the kind of a crucial point. When this red line, and you can do this with any HSI, when it comes in, when the yellow line comes in less than the red line, start turning and you will have a nice easy intercept. If you're flying VFR, that's great to do. If you're flying with ATC on IFR and they tell you to turn, they tell you to turn. But the same concept works for both intercepting far and close. So what you do is you turn the aircraft. We're using the autopilot now, and we're going to keep the red tip to the yellow tip, and that is all we are going to do until we are on the radio. So when you're intercepting from far, it's a very nice, easy process. Okay, and the only thing that complicates this technique, shall we say, is wind. So here we can see we have an 8-knot crosswind from the right, and it's pushing us this way. So if we turn too quick to 256, we will never intercept the radio. And that happens when you're close to a radio too. Wind can keep you from intercepting it. So what I like to do is I like to wait till the line is perfectly aligned on the HSI, and then turn the heading bug direct to, and then it will be small adjustments afterward. So we've got another couple degrees to turn here, and we're keeping it very nice. Now if you had a God's eye view from above, what you'd see is a nice circular intercept. No zigzag, bobbing and weaving back and forth. Kind of makes you look like a professional pilot. The other thing we could have done, knowing that we're so far, is we could have just intercepted at a perpendicular angle, and it still would not have come in very fast. It would have taken maybe a whole minute. Alright, so another couple degrees. Keep those tips together. Now, when the heading bug and the desired track or radial is like less than 10 degrees, what I like to do is just do nothing, fly straight until it's perfectly aligned, because turning 10 degrees takes no time at all. Now you can see here, it's a very slight intercept angle. It's going to take a while for this to come in. And I'm going to demonstrate that by turning to the right. So that's almost perpendicular. And at 60 miles away, it's still not going to come in all that quickly. Oh, aircraft wants some trim up to maintain 45. Okay. So this is not the greatest technique for intercepting a radial. We just turned 90 degrees. We didn't do a clearing turn or anything. But I know we're alone up here in the sky. Alright. So there we are, intercepting almost perpendicular to our desired track. And it's still not coming in very fast. You can kind of watch it here. We've blown through it on there, but that's just for guidance. Okay, so now we're on it, and we can bring it right around. Okay, so our track is 256, and our heading bug is set to 256. And you'll notice we're not blowing through our radial. If anything, ever so gently. And that's what happens when you're 50, 60 miles out. Nothing happens very quickly. And even though this Commanche has like a 50-year-old autopilot that doesn't do a heck of a lot, it's more like cruise control. It'll hold altitude and it will hold your heading, and that's it. So now that we are pretty much aligned, I can give it one click and it will go to heading track. No, sorry, not heading track. What is it? How does it describe it here? Low sensitivity track. So it's tracking the VOR with low sensitivity. And you're good. That's how to intercept a VOR from far. You can fly perpendicular and it won't be that big a deal. The tip I try to use is to align the red line for where the nose is pointed with the offset HSI indicator. I'm not exactly sure how to refer to that. And that's it. Okay, so while we're here, there's one other thing we should do. Just to show you, VORs have an inherent error rate. Now, I read somewhere that a VOR has an error rate of 1 degree. So, or if it's functioning perfectly well, a 1 degree error rate is acceptable. So assuming the A2A VOR and the Cohill VOR are functioning perfectly, there's still an error. And I think we're going to demonstrate that now. So we are flying on the 256 radial out of A2A, which is behind us. The little arrow there is pointing to it behind us. So let's go into heading mode because we're about to swap. So sync up the heading bug and we will go to heading mode tracking, or heading select. Okay, so now we are going to swap the frequencies. And let me swap this one down here too, and it's going to be 115.1. Alright, so now we're 27 miles out from Cohill, but we're 60 miles out from A2A. And look at that. We're supposed to be on the 7.6 radial, so there's 60, 70, 75, and a bit, that's 76. It's the same radial. But look at that. I'm not sure how to refer to that. We're 1 dot deflection off course. 1 dot deflection off course. So if we go here, we will see that that is 1,500 feet. Let's zoom out a little bit. It's 25. Maybe okay. So that is half a mile. So we are like a mile and a half, well, not a mile and a half, 3/4 of a mile off our track, because we were so far from Ottawa with its built-in error rate. So now we are going to intercept the Cohill VOR from half the distance of Ottawa. Alright, so what I like to do is put the heading bug on the tip, and then we will never get an intercept angle that is too harsh. And as you see, it puts the red tip on the yellow tip, and we will just keep them aligned. Now it won't happen as slowly at 23 miles as it did at 55 plus. And the beauty of it is, if you're hand flying and you're all trimmed out, this level of turning does not affect your trim. As you can see here, we're not getting the beeping for trim up, trim down, because it's less than a 5-degree bank. Once again, just keep the red tip and the yellow tip aligned. Oh, interesting. We've, well, the GPS track anyway. So there is some error rate, so it's like half a mile difference. If it's 1 degree error rate at 60 miles equals a 1 mile left or right of the desired track. So we're at half that. And as we get closer, it'll become more accurate. So like I said, we're very close and the wind is pushing us to the left. So we will go through our desired track quicker than usual, but the wind is light. It's 8 knots quartering from our right side and behind us. Okay, so it's almost nicely synced up. Give it a few more seconds. And back to 256, which is the reciprocal of 076. When you're flying to a radial, you dial it in on the tail. When you're flying away from a radial, you dial it in at the head. And now we can just track that. And we are holding at our 4,500 foot for VFR, which is, you know, not VFR anymore. So, and we'll just continue on. It's a demonstration video. Alright, so I will get back to you when we are much closer to the Cohill VOR. Okay, and we are back. We're about 10 miles out from the Cohill VOR, and we should start to prepare for our approach. Okay, well, let's get in the flight deck first. Whoop. Okay, 9 miles. Okay, we can do this. So here's our flight plan, and once we intercept, oh, it's not 7.6, it's 7.2. I blew that, not paying attention. Anyway, doesn't matter. It'll take us to the VOR eventually. So, alright. Little flub on my part there. Alright, so when we get to the VOR on the 076 radial, so we'll be a little bit south of this track. When we fly over, we're going to want to depart on the 300 radial for 63 miles until we get to YQA, which is not having good weather today, but I'm not flying with current weather, so it's not an issue. Alright, so Cohill 115.1, and depart 300, and that is not very far into the future. And the other thing that we're going to want to keep an eye on is our approach. But actually we'll have, this is it here, it's going to be the NDB runway 18 approach. And what we're going to do is we're going to fly over the airport and depart on a heading of 031, which will take us over the VOR. We're going to fly for a minute, turn around, come back, and it should put us in line for runway 8. And minimums are 1,420 feet. Okay, so that's a quick brief, although we're not there yet. So, what we do here is we've got our VOR tuned up. We're tracking it now, so no need to change that. We need to sync up our heading bug so it keeps us on course, and go to heading select tracking. Alright, that'll keep us pretty much going on, doing pretty good, and with less than 4 miles, not going to worry about that. Alright, so we're going to turn it right to 300. Now things are going to happen pretty quickly. Something to keep an eye out on. This is indicating the direction of the VOR. It is ahead of us. When we overfly it, the HSI is going to get confused. That's why we're on heading mode, so we keep flying straight. If we were to stay in nav mode or low track in this aircraft, what happens is they could fly in circles. They will start to, when you get over the cone of confusion, you'll either track left or track right, because it's really, really sensitive the closer you are. When you're right above it, it's very sensitive. So it's either going to go left or right, and it's going to try to follow it. The good thing about this aircraft, it doesn't do turning intercepts, so it pretty much flies straight. The A2A Cessna 182 will start to do all kinds of crazy things. So regardless of the aircraft, best thing to do is just put it in head tracking mode. When the needle flips, turn direct to where you want to go, which is happening now. It's warning us here. Turn coming up in a few seconds. Alright, so we're going to wait, pretend we don't have the GNS. We're just going to, we don't know, we can't see it. There, it just, we lost the signal. So now we can turn direct to 300 because we are over top of it. And notice now it's showing that it's behind us. And our desired track is to the right. Now in my experience, when you're down around 3,000, 5,000 feet, that kind of thing, the cone of confusion is about 2 miles. So we're not going to chase the needle. We're on our 300 heading, and we are going to keep it until we get to at least 2 miles, and then this needle will start to come in on its own. And after 2 miles or 2.5 miles, then we will make adjustments to intercept. And this is where patience pays off. We're at 2 miles now. Alright, so there's 2.5 miles and it doesn't seem to be coming in, so we're going to give it like 20 degrees right. Now the amount of time it takes to re-intercept is like directly proportional to how long you waited after you overflew the VOR. Some people like to, when you get a mile out from the VOR, they'll commence their turn at that time. So you can play with this and develop your own technique, so to speak. So here we have it coming in, not very fast. But if you're bobbing and weaving, your virtual clients in the back, or your family in the back if it's real life, they may get concerned about your pilotage if you're banking and weaving like a drunken sailor in an attempt to keep a heading or intercept a VOR. So just be patient and it will come in, and here it is. And as it's coming, we keep the two tips aligned, and this is happening faster. than otherwise because we are so close to the VOR. We're 5 miles from the VOR now. And now that we're at such shallow angle, I'm going to leave it alone because the wind is pushing us 7 knots an hour to the left. And actually, this may not be enough to keep us closing that distance. It does seem to be closing, but slowly. And just wait at this distance. Just wait till it's perfectly aligned, and then go direct to 300 and engage nav mode. All right, so it's right on. Go to 300. It comes around. We're still pretty much aligned with the VOR, and we go to tracking mode. Now, with this aircraft, you've got to make sure it's perfectly aligned, because if it's not, it'll take forever to intercept, because it doesn't do turning intercepts, the Piper, or this particular autopilot, which is kind of dated. Alright, so now we've done our intercept, and we are perfectly on course, and we are fine. And now to Muskoka, we have 55.6 kilometers. So I shall see you in less than that, in just a few minutes. Alright, see you on the other side. Okay, and we're back. We're about 15 miles out from the airport. It's maybe just visible now. Let's jump in the flight deck and let's brief our approach properly. Okay, so we're doing the Muskoka NDB 18, and the Muskoka VOR, which we will be using solely for our direction, is frequency 272, and we're going to be going outbound on the 3-1 radio. Let's not call it radio. We're going to be taking a track of 3-1 outbound, and we need to do this approach at 2,700 feet. So we're going to overfly the airport at 2,700 feet, make the turn down to 2,000, and then we should have the runway in sight, and it should be easy as pie. All right. Oh, by the way, I got this chart at flightplan.com. It's free, and it does all of Canada and the United States with up-to-date charts. Just thought I'd mention that. Okay, so first thing we need to do is dial in 272 in the ADF. And then 7. Whoop, too fast. There we go. 272, and then swap it over. And now give it a couple seconds, and this will point directly to the NDB. Now the airport should be directly ahead. The NDB is off to the right slightly. It's perfectly normal. Now the other thing, to do this properly, we need to use the HSI and the ADF in conjunction. So we are flying a heading of 300. So let's dial 300 in here. Okay, if that's 300, it looks like we need to turn to about 320 once we're over the airport to be on a heading of track of 311. I mean, sorry, 031. Okay. And we're going to have to keep adjusting or synchronizing our heading with the card here, so we'll know how much to turn, so we won't get messed up. When I flew this before, I didn't do that. I didn't think I had to, and we got messed up. Okay. So we're looking here, and that looks like airport scenery. So we are going to take off the altitude hold. We're going to pull back some power and let her come down. Also, we want to keep the airport on our right. So we are going to come to the left and go into heading mode tracking. Alright, so we're coming off to the left and we're descending about 600 or 700 feet per minute. That's pretty good. And down to 27. And as the aircraft stabilizes, our vertical speed drops and well, it comes close to zero, and we let out a little bit more power and it will start to come down again. Alright. I'm going to try and fly this freehand. Okay, and there goes the autopilot. It's out. Okay, so to fly a nice 3% glide slope for descent, if that's what your wish is, it is your ground speed times 5. So, let me see what radio we're tracking here. Cohill. Okay, so if we flip this up to GS, we're doing 133 knots. Let's say it's 120 because it's easier to work with. 120, or actually 133 times 5. So multiply it by 10 and you get 1330, and then divide that by 2 is like 650 plus. So 650, 700 feet a minute will give you a nice easy descent. So here we are halfway between 500 and 1,000. Alright, and we are coming up on, sync up the heading bug, on okay, so we're not at 300 anymore, we're at like 280. So let's go over here and put this in at about 280. Okay, so the needle's pointing to 0, so we have to turn north to get aligned. Well, we have to do the heading over, sorry, down to 2,700 feet, which we're doing, and we want to fly over the airport and have this needle pointing straight up, and that should be a 031 track. Alright, so get ready to add some power and trim this aircraft. Okay, let's bring it up to 19, almost 2,000 RPM, and we'll let it come down and we'll begin the trimming. Always keep your aircraft in trim. Sometimes you have to keep an eye on it, let it settle down. Alright, there's our airport. And we want to be on a 031 after we're over it. Okay. So we're going to make our turn. Now this is the second or third NDB approach I've ever flown. I know how it's supposed to be done in theory, but having done it myself, that just hasn't worked out. So we're going to fly directly overhead and then we're going to turn to 031. So let's set up 031. And NDB approaches are non-precision approaches, so don't be expecting a great degree of precision or using this in IMC you know, when you're getting close to the limits or the minimums. Okay, so I'm about to overfly the airport and I'm at 2,700 feet. Muskoka traffic, Commanche 316 Papa Whiskey is overhead for the NDB approach. Muskoka traffic. Okay, so I'm overhead and I'm going to turn to 031, and if the ADF is at the 12 o'clock position, we're doing good. I think we're doing good. Okay, so we're wings level at 2750. Get some more up trim there. and we want to fly directly to the VOR. So we're now on a heading of 031. We can now rotate this around to 031. It's best to keep them synced or relatively so. Okay. So we want to keep the VOR off our nose. And it's a little to our left now. Remember, this is a non-precision approach. And with my screen tilted to the side, it makes it very odd. But anyway, we're holding 27, and as we get closer, it's going to be hard to keep the VOR in front of us. And when we overfly the VOR, the needle will flip and will point straight down. And we're not going to chase it, we're just going to keep our heading. A little bit more up trim. Not too much. So we seem to be on a pretty good track right now. Okay. It's probably going to get squirrely at some point. There's no distance information on an NDB. There just isn't. Alright, so I think it's going to flip now. I'm going to stop chasing it and just going to hold our course. And when it flips, which is any second now, I'm going to start our timer. Okay, it's fair to say it is flipped. So we're going to stay wings level, fly straight, and start the 1 minute countdown. Okay. So we're 10 seconds in. Oh. And look, it marks the point of the VOR. We just overflew it, and we are correcting for wind. We're trying to fly the track, so this should be directly below us. So I think we need to turn right a little bit to square that up. Not a whole lot. There we go. 40 seconds now. So as we turn, we're going to descend to 2,000. 55 seconds. Okay, so we're going to pull the power out a little bit and start our turn. Standard rate turn. We're going to nudge it over. Oh, look at that, our inclinometer is not working. I wonder if it got frozen up or something. Alright, so we're going to pull out a little more power because now we're on approach. We're going to want to settle down. So the inclinometer is not working, so that should be like a 20-degree turn or thereabouts. Alright, let's nudge it over a little bit more. Keep an eye on our rate of descent. For this speed, 600 and 700 feet a minute is a good place to be. Let's pull up the power a little bit more. Give us the opportunity to slow it down a little bit. Alright, nice, easy turn. Now we have the GPS for guidance, but we shouldn't need it. As we see, the needle's coming back around. And as we can see here, the reciprocal course is 211. So let's dial in 211.
Obstacle ahead. Obstacle ahead.
I got that the last time. How interesting. Oh, blew my altitude. Shit.
Obstacle ahead.
Let's add some power. And pull the nose up. Alright. So we're going to go wings level now. And pull back the power. 2,000. Alright. So this is a tricky part for me. We're flying directly to the NDB, which is okay. And when it flips, we should be on the 211 track. Okay, we're ignoring the HSI. We're only about our heading and our bugged. Okay. Let's get our altitude up. We're down 100 feet. Okay, so we're flying south. Let's get this squared away. There's 180. We should be at 170. Yeah. Alright. And we've lost a little altitude. NDB approaches are challenging. Alright, and so the needle here is at 211. So we should turn to 211 now. Add a little bit more power because we're going to lose lift in the turn. And that sucker should come around and we should be pointing directly at it. Except that we're so close, we've blown that. So we're going to stay on 211. We're a little bit right of 211. So we're going to track that. Alright, and the airport should be in sight. We're at 2,000 feet. There's our runway. So let's slow it up. Let's drop our gear. Mixture and props to full. Fuel on, lights on. Okay, we can go 1 notch of flaps. Let's confirm. They're out there. Let's get our trim back. Want to keep it at about 500 feet a minute descent. So we can do it hands-free. Okay, and we want like 80 knots. So let's go another notch of flaps. Pulling back the power, pulling back the power. Because we're descending and losing altitude. Let's pull out the power a lot. And nudge it down a little bit. Let's have a look. There we go. Alright, so I'm going to go with our 3rd notch of flaps. Because we are heavy. Let's not forget. Let's do a gentle turn. And we've got it. We want it trimmed for 90 knots. And maintain our descent's too much, so we're going to add power. Power for altitude. And forgot to put the carb heat off. We had some icing issues earlier. Alright. So we're at about 90 knots. Our wind is to the right, 8 knots. It's not so bad. Alright. And we're going to let the power out. We're all trimmed. We're a little high. Not a little high, we're a little fast. So I'm pulling out the power considerably. Let's try to maintain our alignment. Feet alive. We're going to need some rudder. There's our 90 knots. And it's coming down gently. Alright. We're over the numbers. Lots of rudder. And power out. Whoa, 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 whoa. Yeah. My flare timing is off considerably. 124 feet a minute. I think I need to find a way to land her at a higher speed and keep control because the elevator controls are just too sensitive. Alright, we have crosswind here. So full deflection on the ailerons. You can't see that. There we go. And we're going to go flaps up. And there's the welcome center ahead. We're going to put in some RPM to 1,000 so we can keep up our taxi. Yeah, I think my landing speed was just too low for the amount of weight the aircraft is carrying. gonna have to learn the Commanche all over again, because I thought I had it all figured out, and then I started flying bigger jets with real flares, and I lost some of the touch of the GA aircraft that I had going on. Alright, so we are really slowed down now. And we will just coaster into the Welcome Center. Before we do that, let's be proper. Oh, I didn't even make some radio calls as we came in. Landing lights can come off, and strobe lights can come off, and flaps are up, and trim is set just where I like it. That reminds me, can just look up, set the trim for where I want it, and it'll be perfect for landing and for takeoff. Okay, give it some power and continue to the Welcome Center. And we're on the ground, so let's lean aggressively, take care of our engine. So this scenery, it is an Orbix airport. I think it's available with the Orbix North American free airports. It is one of them. Right, there we are. Parking brakes on, and autopilot and avionics master can come off, and mixture to cut off, mags to off, master off, beacon off. Can unlock the door. And welcome to Muskoka. So hopefully you got something out of that VOR and NDB navigational demonstration. This is Pilot Wannabe. I am not a pilot. I am not a real pilot in any way, shape, or form. Although I have flown about 12 hours 25 years ago, and about 2 years of simming of late. So I know a little bit, but I don't know it all. So hopefully you found this demonstration useful, and let me know in the comments, or if you have any other requests, or if I made any mistakes or omissions that you caught, let me know. Look forward to doing more of these. This is great. So thank you for joining me on this VOR demonstration, and till next time, Pilot Wannabe saying so long.